Welcome to part 2 of our study on 1 John 1 through 4. And the first time we looked at the introduction, just kind of setting the stage that John, is writing this letter saying he wanted his joy to be complete. They wanted their joy to be complete. And today we're talking about the joy of a disciple. Now, John starts his letter with 4 phrases that all start with the phrase, that which. The first is, that which was from the beginning. The debate over the centuries has been about, what is John, what beginning is John writing about? We understand that this is talking about Jesus, but is this referring to the humanity of Jesus or the deity of Jesus? It has been used to support both. On the deity side, you can go over to John's Gospel and read, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and he was in the beginning with God. What beginning is John talking about here? Well, the beginning of beginnings. The Word was in the beginning before anything else began. The beginning before time began. In other words, for all eternity. The Word, Jesus, was with God and was God. This is all true and right, and we must bring this understanding of Jesus with us as we enter into the study of 1 John. We know who Jesus is. He is God. But John does say that which was in the beginning, which we have heard, etc., which were all things that John did while Jesus was performing his earthly ministry, and John was his disciple. So that which was from the beginning is probably referring to which the apostles, including John, were present for and were able to do, and makes sense. Either they were there for all the following phrases that come after that which was in the beginning. So, you don't need to worry about the defense of the deity of Christ, though. You don't have to worry about, if you get rid of the defense of the deity of Christ here, then we don't have one. Well, that's not true, because his defense that Jesus was God comes in verse 2. So, even if this one is just, even if when he says in the beginning is just referring to the beginning of his earthly ministry, the time that he spent, John's time he spent with Jesus, which is very early on, then we don't have to worry about that removing, that's one of our key sentences to prove the deity of Christ, because actually verse 2 does that. So we don't have to worry about that. And so John says that which was from the beginning, they heard. John was a man that loved the truth. His search for it led him to John the Baptist, who was proclaiming that the Lamb of God was coming. On the day of Jesus' baptism, John the Baptist pointed John and Andrew to Jesus. He pointed out Jesus. As soon as Jesus called John, he followed and listened. John heard the many sermons and parables that Jesus gave as he taught from town to town. John heard the Father speaking from heaven about Jesus. This is my beloved Son, hear him. John heard these words he heard those words with his own ears. And so John heard that, they heard, and that's what he's saying. We've heard these things. John also saw the ministry of Jesus with his own eyes. That's the next phrase. He was not recording something secondhand, but he was an eyewitness. He saw diseases removed, birth defects healed, demons exorcised, and the dead raised. He saw Jesus transfigured before him as he talked with Moses and Elijah. He was at the cross as Jesus died. He looked into the empty tomb. He saw Jesus as he ascended into heaven. He experienced what Job, hundreds of years before, hoped for. I shall see for myself, my eye shall behold, and not another. We may have doubts when we hear second or third-hand information, but with John, we have a man that saw everything that Jesus did with his own eyes. So when we look at the Gospel of John, when we look at the letters of John, when we're even reading the revelation of Jesus Christ from John, those are all things that were written down by an eyewitness. And so he was there, he saw the things with his own eyes, he heard the words being spoken with his own ears, and that is what he has given to us. Next, John was not just an eyewitness. He was not just a reporter standing off on the side observing. John looked upon and touched Jesus. The word translated as looked upon contains the sense of viewing attentively, contemplating, perceiving, or to gaze upon. So John not only witnessed what Jesus did, but he also looked with the goal to understand what was happening. John said in John 1:14, "And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth." It's by the looking upon that he saw that Jesus was full of grace and truth. His own eyes visibly saw the glory of Jesus, the glory of the Father that is manifested in the Son. But he saw grace and truth by looking intently, seeing who this man was, seeing his teaching and hearing his teaching and seeing the miracles and all the things happening, and then putting those things together and being instructed by the Father and the Spirit and learning those things. Because grace and truth are not things that are seen with your own eyeballs, but they're perceived from knowing the person. So John also touched Jesus, which destroys the heresies that claim Jesus was only spirit, not also flesh. He was not a ghost. John sat down and had meals with Jesus. Jesus touched people, and they touched him. On the night of the Lord's Supper, Jesus washed John's feet, and as John says, he leaned back against him. Even after the resurrection, John could have touched Jesus. After all, Jesus invited Thomas to touch his hands and his side, and they ate a meal together on the shore of Galilee. John looked upon and touched Jesus. John was a disciple of Jesus, and the joy of being his disciple while he was physically ministering on the earth is what spills out of John as he writes this letter. So that's the lesson for today. Come back tomorrow and we'll look at the joy of the word of life.